jump in and thought we'd start with kind of where are we now, especially in Virginia. So unfortunately, there hasn't been a decent number of polls of the Commonwealth in the last couple of weeks, either private or public. So the most recent one that we have to look at is kind of the Roanoke College poll, which was in the beginning of May. So at that point in time, Virginians were mostly positive about the direction of the state. 57% of people said the state was going in the right direction. 37% were off on the wrong track. Now, we've been seeing elsewhere around the country that people have gotten more pessimistic over the last couple of weeks, and whether that is because of a resurgence in coronavirus in states that have started to open up, or it's because of the protests and kind of the inequalities that those have been highlighting, it's kind of up for debate. But I would expect that this number has changed in the last couple of weeks.
But I think that's due to the protests. I mean, I think people are taking a wrong track direction here very, very sharply on that. That's just me. Go ahead.
No, I agree. I think that's probably the bulk of it.
Right.
And I think most people, from what I've seen in other, let's call it the suburban areas where we're always focused on, is that they are pro protests. They're pro the Black Lives Matter movement, and I think we'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay. But there is going to be a concern with the defund the police movement. That kind of gets into people, and especially suburban women's individual sense of safety. So we'll see kind of how that plays out over the next couple of months.
Okay, that's something to look forward to. Is that something you're going to be polling and modeling on?
I'm sure we will. Especially, like I said, in those suburban districts that are always the battlegrounds, suburban areas for statewide races.
Okay.
It's going to be a thing.
Okay, very good.
So looking at the governor's approval rating back in November, in the middle of the contested election, he was still right side up on approval, 35% approved, 28% disapprove. In February, kind of during session, as he was pushing through a lot of controversial bills, his approval rating kind of was split 40% approved, 41% disapprove. But in May, he got a bit of a bump. We saw it, frankly, among a lot of governors all across the country, and Trump to a certain extent as well. He was at 59% approval, 29% disapproval. So here on the next slide, we can look at kind of how he compares to other governors in the region and other states that were hard hit. So this is a different survey. This is done by Survey USA and Washington Post. So this kind of puts all of them on an even playing field, right? We're looking at the same set of numbers, the same methodology across all of these states. So here, Northam had a 67% approval rating. Compare that to Maryland, Governor Hogan is an 85% approval rating. Now, he has consistently been one of the best performing governors on job approval.
Why is it? Let's do a little dive here on Hogan. Why is he so popular? What's he doing? Republican governor in a Democratic state.
I think he has been out there. He's been in the community. He's been making outreach to communities that typically Republicans haven't made a lot of outreach to, especially in Baltimore. I remember one of his ads from his first term when he was looking for re-election. He had this African-American man, I think his name was Squeaky, actually do an ad for him. And the Squeaky said that when Hogan was running the first time, he came over to his charity and said, win or lose, I'm going to be back here for you, helping you out in whatever capacity I can. And then the guy was very surprised that, Hogan won, and then he actually showed up to help. And it was, I believe it was without cameras. It could be wrong on that. But, he actually did follow through on some of his promises, and specifically promises to the African-American community. And that kind of has held him through, a lot of crises that have happened in Baltimore specifically and throughout the state.
But he did what he said he was going to do. That strikes to the integrity issue. It also strikes to the fact that he's willing to, get outside of his lane, his comfort zone with Republicans, just talking to Republicans, which I think is the problem. One of the problems in our country writ large is that Democrats only talk to Democrats, and Republicans only talk to Republicans, because we're in this binary reality show at best, political disaster of a country that we're turning into, because we don't talk to each other. We don't talk to our silos. But that's my little editorial. Go ahead, Amanda.
No,
and I'm going to be doing that a lot, by the way, because I'm sick and tired of it.
So Northam is on kind of the lower end of this bounce that we kind of see across these states. The only one that's lower kind of in the region is Tennessee Governor Lee. Cooper's a little bit higher. New Jersey, Murphy. Cuomo definitely got a lot of a media bump in the early stages of the crisis, and then out in California, Newsom also did as well. And I think Northam's being on the lower end stems more from how low his approval was before the crisis. So he was starting at a lower point statewide than a lot of these other governors did.